Good morning. It's November 19, 2024, and it's a Tuesday. This morning, I started floating back in time, thinking about wood again, how beautiful wood is, and woodworking. And that's, pretty much all I'm thinking about.
This is David Lynch. He's an American filmmaker, painter, animator, sculptor, musician, actor, and as of late, YouTuber. He is most widely known for his surrealist and often macabre films and television shows that have garnered a large cult following. He is a dreamer, and his films always resemble the confusion and mystery attributed to dreams. His films are classically uninterpretable, and he prefers it that way.
Having completed this film, what is it about?
That's Charlie. A film is so many things, and you work for 2 years or more to get it to feel absolutely correct as you can make it. And then to translate 2 hours of an orchestrated thing into some words, especially when you don't have a gift for words, is you always fail. So I can't tell you.
All right.
He would much rather you feel his films and submit to them, rather than try to understand them. He is quoted as saying, "Just go in open, and just go in, and have an experience in a different world. It's the most enjoyable thing to go into another world and discover it." I say all this because I don't intend to interpret these films, but instead analyze what makes them a truly David Lynch work. However, I'm not actually going to talk about Mulholland Drive, or Blue Velvet.
Fuck! What are you looking at? Nothing. Don't you look at me, fuck!
I'm also not going to talk about Twin Peaks, and I'm also not going to talk about his 1984 adaptation of Dune. No, today I want to talk about a time before the term Lynchian even existed. I want to go back to when David Lynch was in a very similar situation to the one you and I find ourselves in now, being a film student. I'm going to look at the different elements that make up a Lynch work and see how we can apply them to his early student films. These films being Six Men Getting Sick, Absurd Encounter with Fear, The Alphabet, The Grandmother, and finally Eraserhead. But first, I must set the scene. Initially, Lynch didn't go to school for film. He had enrolled at the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts for oil painting and sculpture. But Lynch wouldn't stick with just this medium for very long. His first film, Six Men Getting Sick, was born from a desire to see his paintings move. After purchasing a cheap 16mm film camera, he animated a short sequence in which, as the title of the piece suggests, 6 men get sick. With many filmmakers, you can see the first inklings of what will become their body of work. Lynch is no different. His entire filmography can be seen as being dedicated to the idea of confronting his audience with what they do not want to see, or exposing internalized sickness. 6 Men Getting Sick is a literal depiction of that. These 6 figures cannot contain their repressions and involuntarily make their insides their outsides. This brings me to my first element of David Lynch's early work, his multidisciplined approach. As he made the transition from painting and sculpture to film, Lynch incorporated these mediums into the narrative of his films. We see this prominently in 6 Men Getting Sick, as the piece is primarily painting and sculpture, with Lynch using the camera to animate movement. He projected this piece over top of 3 plaster casts of his head, and also included fire as a climactic element. In The Alphabet, Lynch mixes highly detailed animations with live-action stop-motion photography. These transitions are jarring and confusing, which adds to the film's discomfort. Being able to work in these mediums allows Lynch to use more abstract ideas in his films, such as the letter A being born from a vaginal opening and then entering one's mind and causing it to bleed profusely. Lynch works with this idea of abstraction again in his 33-minute film, The Grandmother. He uses animated transitional sequences to not only push the narrative, but also allow us to understand the mental state of his lead character, a neglected little boy. The animations are childlike in nature, and always depict scenarios that could be derived from a child's understanding of the world. At one point in the film, there is an animated sequence where the boy is born from a seed in the ground. Throughout the film, we see the boy being violently punished for wetting the bed, so in another animated sequence, the boy falls into a pool of his own urine, seemingly being consumed by his fear. For the last section of the film, there are no animations. This could be to show that the boy has matured, but only Lynch knows for sure, and he won't tell us. Lynch would also create elaborate sculptural elements for the film, like the pod that the grandmother is born out of. Animation wouldn't feature as prominently in his later films, but special effects would, most of which Lynch created himself. There are plenty of them to be found in Eraserhead. Barren planets serve as the opening to the film, which were achieved with miniatures. With the film being in black and white, Lynch could not rely on colors to evoke disgust or dread, and so all of the special effects have a great deal of texture to them. Textures such as sores, slime, and pus feature heavily, especially in one of the subjects of the film, the baby.
Oh, you are sick.
The deformed baby that serves as a sort of inciting incident for Eraserhead has lots of suspicion around its creation. Lynch said he'll never reveal how it worked, and everyone on the movie was sworn to secrecy. He even gave it a little funeral and buried it somewhere. There are tons of theories on what it was made of and how it worked, including many who believe it was a real sheep fetus. Regardless, its effect on the film as a sickly, whining creature is pivotal to the mood and tone of Eraserhead. These kinds of striking visuals are just one tool in Lynch's toolbox for making his uncanny films. Another can be found in his production design. I believe his background in painting gives him a unique eye for composition and framing, but another way he achieves this is through barren set design. In The Alphabet, Lynch filmed his own bedroom that he painted black for the film. He contrasts the black with painting his actor's face a sort of bluish white. This makes her stand out against the background, but also makes her seem less human and more ghoul-like. He does this in both Absurd Encounter with Fear and The Grandmother. The Grandmother has the most production design of his early shorts. Again, all the walls for the interior shots are painted black, and the sets are dimly lit. The design of these sets is very sparse, alluding to the inhospitable nature of its occupants. Color is used sparingly, and when shooting outside, Lynch opted for black and white film. With a larger budget, Eraserhead was able to have more elaborate sets, but they all still have the desolate quality that Lynch is so fond of. So much of Lynch's work revolves around Americana, and we can see that shown in Eraserhead. After the initial dreamlike opener with planets and fetuses, we see Henry Spencer meander through a grim industrial complex. He makes his way home, passes through a dimly lit mid-century apartment lobby, and into a poorly functioning elevator. Henry's apartment shares the same desolate feeling as the rest of the world. It's even complete with weird clumps of grass on his dresser and floor, and a small stick sitting in a pile of dirt on his nightstand. Eraserhead takes a much more absurd approach in all aspects of its filmmaking, and the production design is no different. Creating a sense of dread and mystery can be accomplished through production design, but where I think Lynch's abilities really shine is in his sound design. Images can only be so effective, but sound adds the final layer to truly pull you into a film. Even in quiet moments, his films are never actually silent because he is such a fan of adding abstract room tone everywhere. In Eraserhead, there is very little dialogue and virtually no score, but Lynch makes up for this with a vast and deeply unsettling soundscape. For example, let's go back to the grim industrial complex. It's incredibly layered with haunting sirens, soft echoing music from a loudspeaker somewhere, mechanical grumbling, and lots of wind. Wind is a favorite of Lynch's, and he uses it often, commonly as a faux room tone. It often carries ominous undertones and serves as the dominant sound element in most of his early work. The howling wind functions as an auditory marker of an otherwise invisible force. For Lynch, it symbolizes mystery. Sound effects aid in the macabre nature of Lynch's films. They make the special effects seem more gross and they make abusive parents seem scarier. Lynch is very fond of manipulating the sounds he gathers, either as they are being recorded or in post. This sound from the alphabet is his own infant daughter crying, recorded on a broken tape recorder. The only dialogue featured in The Grandmother, being the parents calling the boy mutt and the boy crying, were all done in post. It gives these sounds a much more uncanny feeling, as they don't appear to actually be spoken by the characters themselves. Six Men Getting Sick wouldn't be nearly as effective if not for the looping air raid siren that plays during its duration. And what would the alphabet be without the tormented version of a child's nursery song?
Now I've said my ABCs, tell me what you think of me.
These are crucial elements to these films, and that is why Lynch is credited as sound designer on most of his feature films. On the off chance that Lynch does add music, it is always carefully curated to the mood and tone of a film. The Grandmother features plenty of non-diegetic music that is repeated over and over throughout. Most of the film has a droning organ that sounds like a deflating bagpipe. For scenes of importance, the organ is drowned out with a high-pitched whining noise, like when the boy is conceived. For For contrast, when the grandmother is comforting the boy after an altercation, Lynch opts for a brighter-sounding organ, accompanied by a lone vocalist. While it's not happy by any means, it is less sinister than the other organ motif, and serves as a much-needed relief to the ears. In Absurd Encounter with Fear, Lynch sets the film to a dissonant and chaotic orchestral score. As the film title suggests, it's about fear, and the music is a great fit for that. The edit of the film is timed with the music beats, so crescendos of violins add punch to the crash zooms and cuts. Even from his early work, David Lynch possessed a unique storytelling style and vision. His images are surreal and evoke feelings of disgust and dread. Through his sound design, he is able to transport us to different worlds, or envelop us in familiar but strange surroundings. I hope that through this video essay, you've seen something that interests you in David Lynch's work. And if not, that's okay. That's the beauty of film. He has a very diverse array of films that tell a lot of different stories, and I just think it's really cool to see where his mind was at when he was just starting out. I've left out one element to David Lynch's work that is arguably my favorite. Lynch has a great talent for writing and directing absurdity. It is what keeps his films from becoming all too serious or depressing, and what keeps me coming back for more. When speaking on absurdity with the Los Angeles Times, he had this to say: "Absurdity is what I like most in life. And there's humor in struggling in ignorance. If you saw a man repeatedly running into a wall until he was a bloody pulp, after a while it would make you laugh because it becomes absurd. But I don't just find humor in unhappiness. I find it extremely heroic the way people forge on despite the despair they often feel. Like the character in Eraserhead. He's totally confused, yet he struggles to figure things out and do what's best. Isn't that fantastic?" I feel that Eraserhead starts to really showcase Lynch's love of absurdity, and I think that no scene better exemplifies this element than the chicken dinner scene. So I will leave you with this.
The girls have heard this before, but 14 years ago, I had an operation on my arm here. Doctors said I wouldn't be able to use it. Well, what the hell do they know, I said, and I rubbed it for a half hour every day, and then I got so I could move it a little, and I got so I could turn a faucet, and pretty soon I had my arm back again. Now I can't feel a damn thing in it, all numb. I'm afraid to cut it, you know? Mary usually does the carving, but maybe tonight you'll do it, Henry. All right with you?
Of course. I'd be happy to. Do I just cut them up like regular chickens?
Sure, just cut them up like regular chickens.